the good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is an Energy Week Extra, and we have Guy Payne here telling us about what, Guy?
Raise your hand, guys, so we know which one.
That's what I like about this place, nice and loose. As many folks know, we, in addition to the work we do with the professionals, in whether it's the green building or solar or biomass, we also run public forums.
Yes.
Certainly believe that keeping the public informed also creates the demand.
I have to stop you here. Let's keep the public informed. Who is we? This is a special that relates to SEON. And SEON is an acronym, SEON, for what I don't remember.
Sustainable Energy Outreach Network.
I always miss that outreach thing.
So what we're doing in terms of our first public offering for 2018 is have a program, what we're titling it, it's all about weatherization. How to keep your home cozy and save money at the same time. And I realize we've been talking about weatherization for a number of years. SEVCA has been around and so forth. But the challenge, I think, for most folks is just how complex the decision-making is for everyone to begin moving forward. Do I just weatherize? Who are the good people? If we do one part, how do I prioritize things? And for many people, there's a hassle factor.
I thought that was an actor.
Hasselback. And so what we wanted to do was to present is to have a forum in which many of the key services are available to answer many of the questions. And so on Wednesday from 5:30 to 8 at the River Garden, AKA Strolling of the Heiffers.
Right.
This coming Wednesday, March 7th.
March 7th.
We'll be having a group called the Heat Squad, which is based out of West Rutland, and they provide services literally throughout the state. And they've been around for a number of years.
Very well known.
Yeah, they and they do reach down to Windham County. They will be here and giving an overview of what is the overall process in terms of wet weatherization, what is included in an energy audit, are things prioritized in an audit, a little bit on how does a house work, because most folks don't really understand. They go into the basement and they go, what is all this?
Well, some people go into the basement and they say, I've been working in this area for the last 40 years. I know all about it. And it turns out that if you pay attention to what they're saying and current science, they're wrong.
They're wrong.
And it's not that they're stupid or anything like that. It's just that you've got to keep up to date on this, like a lot of other things in technology.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, it sounds so basic. How does a house work? But people don't realize it.
Well, it's not basic anymore. I mean, there's a whole branch of physics now called building science.
Yeah.
Which is how air, heat, and moisture move through a house. Not just move through a house, but also within a product itself.
Yes.
And between products when you're building a wall system.
Yes.
And that gets to be real complicated if your contractor is unaware of all of those components. And far too many of them.
Don't tell me what to do. I've been building houses for 40 years.
Exactly.
Right. My grandfather built houses like this. I can build houses the same way you do.
But as you say, it is a science.
It is. It's a branch of physics now.
I had an interesting experience in the co-op where I was standing in line with a woman and she asked me something and I said, well, I write for Green Energy Times and I have a TV show and I have an energy blog and so forth. And she said something about housing, and I told her about an interview that I had just had in which the architect had told me, you can get a near passive house, 90% of the way to passive, which means that you've reduced your heat costs by 90% for the same price as a conventional building.
You don't have to build a chimney.
Right. You have to insulate more, but you don't need a chimney and you don't need a central furnace. And she heard that and she said, what do you mean? And I basically said what we just said. And she looked like she was about to cry. She had just finished building a house.
With a chimney.
With a chimney and a furnace and conventional construction. And she was facing bills that would run into hundreds of dollars every month for the rest of her life, because she had made a choice that was based on what somebody's grandfather did building a house.
Which was perfectly fine when
It
he
was
built the house.
perfectly fine when they built the houses.
And they don't mind a little random air movement.
Random air movement.
You know?
House has to breathe, you know that?
I used to live in a house where my bedroom door would close because the wind blew it closed when the windows were closed.
But I mean, there's one of the things that you find with many folks, it's, oh, I know, I really need to do something about windows. And the public goes there. They think that, for many of them, is where the big energy costs are. And if you do anything along that line, your payback is about 150 years.
Should you live that long?
Should you? Yes. So, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions around weatherization and what needs to be done. Weatherization versus, well, do I have to take my bedroom walls down to the studs? Is that what I need to do? And so there's a lot of questions that people have. And we're hoping that this program will shed some light on the steps that people can take. We'll have people from, as I said, the Wyndham, the heat squad will be there.
Right.
We'll give a little bit of who will also speak to some of the incentives that Efficiency Vermont provides. Vermont State Employee Credit Union will be there to talk about their different loan packages and portfolios.
Amazing stuff that you can
They're
get from
getting on
them.
top of things, aren't they?
They really are.
They are the leaders within the state. As well as SEVCA will be there to speak to people who are a little bit more income sensitive. What are the
SEVCA
options for them as well?
SEVCA insulated the house that I live in about a year after I moved in, which was 14 years ago, and did a stunningly good job.
Yeah.
And it cost me nothing. It cost my landlady nothing.
Right.
And they even somehow left behind an Energy Star refrigerator for me. By the way, everybody, I'm poor. I'm still poor, but I've got a good refrigerator.
I don't have to pay as much monthly now as I used to.
I don't have to pay as much monthly. My biggest bill is for keeping my electricity for my computer, my desktop computer, not the little thing that's down there, not that little puppy, which runs on, I think, 4 watts. Is that what we measured it?
3 point something.
3.8 watts.
And you know, I think one of the groups that we would really like to see attend will be the landlords.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a huge, I don't know what the percentage is of people living in Brattleboro who rent, but it's fairly significant.
very large.
It's
Yeah,
very
definitely
large.
Half or
And we know what some of those homes look like and are. And so any way in which we can get the landlords there to begin seeing what some of the options are for them, that would be great, because a lot of the burden then falls on the rent payers.
even if they don't know it, that's where the burden falls, because the rent,
That's right.
if the landlord is paying the utility bills and the heat, that has to come
It's
out of the
costing them.
rent, and it's
Yeah.
got to get figured in there. So
And even if he's not paying for the rent, for the heat in any way, the value of his house is still being enhanced. So
Right.
he's benefiting that way.
yeah, there's a lot of reasons to do this.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is important too. Is for people if they're doing, whether it's weatherization or more sort of extensive work that we tend to call deep energy retrofit. There's a whole addendum. It's called a green addendum that is important for people to have as documentation that this is the work that has been done.
Right.
And many people are not aware of that, and that can be, you could put that online, or there are forms that you can fill, because the appraisers, we don't have appraisers in southern Vermont who know how to do the appraisal of a green home. There's a certification for that, but as of a couple of months ago, there's no one south of Route 4 who was certified as a green appraiser.
Really?
Yes.
Where is Route 4?
Rutland.
Nobody south of Rutland.
That's right. So many banks down here have to pay an additional travel fee to bring someone down here.
That's a job somebody could go into and make some money at.
One might think.
But so much of the value, getting back to Tom, your point in terms of the value of the home increases, it really begins with the appraisal to make sure that that house is valued and that there are comparables around. And that's been sort of the slow evolution of the value of homes.
Now, this whole thing has got to be documented if you're going to upgrade your house, and that should start with an evaluation, an appraisal, but also with things like the blower door test and all the rest of that.
That's all part of the energy audit.
So you have to do an energy audit and separately an appraisal.
Right.
And that's where you start. And that is because you want to save money.
Yeah. And what's important is that everyone who attends Wednesday, there's a special forum offer of $100 for the energy audit.
Wow.
Energy audits cost $400, $500. Those attendees, and these are all people who have been approved by the Heat Squad. So,
So they get a 25% discount right off the bat.
On the energy audit.
Yeah.
no, 75%.
75%.
Special forum offer, $100 for an energy audit.
Oh, it's not $100 off. It's $100 for the audit.
I read it.
Oh
I
my
heard it
gosh.
wrong too. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, that makes
You
sense.
hear that, folks?
Yeah.
Get it right this time.
Yeah, I mean, so we were looking for an. You can't find a better incentive to come to Wednesday night and to have an energy audit done. You can't even have a physical for $100.
Yeah.
Now this is Wednesday night, 5:30 at the Strolling and the Heiffers.
Right.
Okay, and it lasts until 7:30.
7:30, 8 o'clock,
Whatever.
depending how the Q&A goes.
Okay.
So that'll be it. So that's what we wanted to get out to the public about. And
Okay.
that's
Tell me more about SEON.
okay.
I mean, you're here. You might as well let people know.
We got the studio for another 45 minutes.
Okay. We started out really based on the results of Hurricane Irene. From the aftermath of Irene.
Sorry, I'm laughing. I had a funny experience with Irene, but go ahead.
Hurricane Irene, when the builders and weatherization people came to me when I was in a different capacity and said, we really don't have access to the kind of knowledge and understanding of water and water vapor. Now, granted, Hurricane Irene was bulk water.
Yes.
But they were realizing that there's a whole issue around mold, about water vapor. And
There were a bunch of basements that produced water vapor.
and still do, right? So I knew Peter Yost of Building Green and spoke with him along with some other practitioners in the field, and we put together a training course for builders and weatherization. And it was hugely successful. Unfortunately, because of the ARA money at the time, people could take that course for free. But the builders came to a realization after taking this course that they needed a monthly way to continue meeting, to continue with their intellectual curiosity, their
Right.
inquisitiveness.
Right.
You know, people go to conferences and they say, well, this is a networking. Okay, that's what, once a year.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
But we wanted something that was networking that was monthly,
Yes.
that maintained people's interest in state-of-the-art work, in what is best practice, what are you doing that I may not be doing? And so we evolved to a building science guild. And so it's reminiscent of Europe, but not as an exclusionary group that Europe used to have, but really focusing on ongoing education of the practicing folks. And so it is.
So these are people who are not going to say, my grandfather did it this way and I'm going to do it this way too.
That's right. These are also people that will say, there is a Vermont Energy Code. And by the way, all builders who are touching the external envelope need to make sure that they complete the Vermont Energy Code compliance. But these are people here who say that's not good enough for my business. We go beyond this. And what they're doing is practicing all aspects of the building science. Yes, they're concerned about aesthetics, they're concerned about the role of carpentry, but over and above that, it's how do we make sure and that we practice building science in everything that we do. So we have been meeting for 5 years, and these builders get together for 3 hours once a month at our headquarters. World headquarters, second floor, Friends of the Sun. And noodle on all aspects, whether it is a new process, whether it is, for example, next month we're going to be up at the Great River Terrace, which is the lamplighter,
Yeah.
the former lamplighter motel.
This
GPI
just been turned
construction.
into homeless shelter, or?
Homeless and I think partially disabled. And this was Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust in collaboration with Stevens and Associates, and GPI Construction is doing the work. All three of those folks are members of SEON.
That's a great idea.
So,
it really is.
so we're meeting there, all the builders next month, to do a walkthrough. What is it that the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust were trying to accomplish? How did Stevens and Associates, what were the kind of direction that they gave? And what did GPI Construction do? Last night we had a program on this is what you can get if you build a small house. Not a tiny house, but a small house. And these are the things that you can get. And so we had a presentation on the Habitat for Humanity in Rutland, as well as a wonderful consultant or architect who's a member of SEON over in Manchester on the tiny house, on the small houses that he's been building. So that is one piece. It's an ongoing problem now, advanced problem solving, networking, what's best practice, and you wouldn't know that they're competitors with one another, and they are, but they're there for the sole purpose of going deep, in terms of my understanding. We're also getting a facility managers guild going. Whether these are facility managers at your local schools, your adult centers, sort of the light commercial areas, and Latches, Bradley House, and saying, okay, what are the issues for the facility managers? Because there's not really in this area a sort of knowledge center of what do facility managers need to know. They've been handed over, let's say, a new facility, and it's like, okay, what am I supposed to look at now? What should I be measuring? What should I be monitoring? I know I've got fire, codes. I know I got to worry about lighting, and I know I got to worry about heating. But what are all the monitoring devices that are out there that I need to be aware of? So we're building a facility managers or creating a facility managers guild, because many of these come out of the trades, and now they have to manage an energy system, which is a whole nother level of knowledge. And how are all these related to one another? So SEON is working to really create a series of small networking groups, and literally, build the facility managers can certainly, sit on the building science guild. There are many correlations, but we'd like to get the real estate groups involved, the appraisers. We need to bring that whole field up to speed. We were involved initially with the Wind and Wood Heat initiative. So Academy School, Green Street School has pellet systems now. And then the other component of what we're doing is the public forums. So there's the public forum, but I know I was on here in the fall, and we will have our third program, our sustainable home tour.
Right.
And the contractors love that, the public loves that, because it's a non-sales. And you can look at a work in progress, or you can look at completed work. The last piece, and we're still in the process, hopefully we can have an announcement within the next couple of weeks, is we want to introduce a high performance builder industry recognized credential for residential and light commercial entry-level carpenters. It's an attempt to redefine what is needed by new carpenters coming in, as well as what are the old. I've been building this way for 30 years, but that has to change.
So the realization is there's more to carpentry now than swinging a hammer.
Absolutely. And in the high school curriculum, which is a statewide curriculum, really solid. It's very good. There's no mention of building science in that program.
It's interesting. I forget which one it was, but one of our representatives in Montpelier from Brattleboro was telling me several months ago that this is a very big issue because the biggest demand that they were projecting for employment in, I think, the state of Vermont was carpentry, and nobody's being trained for it. And the world has changed. It's no longer who can swing a hammer. You have to have the background, and just the same way that you need the background to be a fireman, for example.
Well, if you look at the housing stock in Brattleboro, most of the rental apartments are not in brick and mortar buildings like I live in. They're in old buildings that were built in 1890 for large families and turned into apartments.
Right.
So there's maybe a house that held a large family in 1890 now has as many as 4 different families living in it. But they're still old construction.
Yes.
And with that old construction, there's so much room for improvement.
But it has to be done knowledgeably. It's
Absolutely. Otherwise, it's a waste.
It's worse than a waste. You can
Yeah.
make things worse rather than better.
Yeah, I mean, and when we use the word high performance, what we're really talking about is energy efficiency, yes. Renewable energy, yes. Comfort,
Yes.
yes. Durability,
Yes.
yes. Indoor air quality, yes.
Yes.
All of that is what we're talking about when we reference high performance building, as well as the knowledge as to how much embodied energy are in these different products, and can I get things locally? That whole piece. So it's sort of redefining what carpentry is,
Yes.
and what we need for the next generation of carpenters coming along. We're blessed in this area with some really hotshot.
We've got resources in the Brattleboro area that are just amazing.
Yeah. But getting back to that point, The McClure Foundation, does statewide work, yes, did identify carpenters as the second highest demand profession over the next 10 years behind nursing.
Yes.
Behind who?
Nursing.
Okay.
10, which is extraordinary. Now, you may say, oh, there are other occupations that are even higher, but the McClure Foundation is looking at higher paying jobs. We can say in retail or something that, no, there's a greater need here, but what they're looking at is what the higher paying jobs are. So what the bigger message here for what we're engaged in is we're managing change. Change to, in one profession, what are the entry kinds of requirements, and maybe down the road, what's a level 2 carpenter or a technician level as opposed to an entry level carpenter? What's needed for a master level? We don't have in carpentry an apprenticeship program. We have it for electrical, we have it for plumbing.
A formal apprenticeship program.
Formal apprenticeship program. It's really tough because that's a very expensive endeavor for many of the companies. In Vermont, our builders, certainly in Windham County, they're not the larger. GPI is probably the largest construction company in Windham County. Everyone else may have a crew of 5, 3, 1. So, all of a sudden I lost my my train of thought. Yeah, but it's not just training anymore. It is there's an education and a training component. There's work-based learning that's going to be required because we're not going to fill that gap of kids just coming out of the career centers. They do a good job, but there's clearly not enough movement coming through. So you need the internships, you need the co-op kinds of experiences.
Right.
You need crew leaders who understand the essence of building science and understand the kinds of questions that they need to ask. It's the old Socratic questioning. Why are you doing this? What would happen if?
Yes.
Tell me more. So they're constantly, granted they're worried about production, but they've got to begin thinking in terms of a leadership role. How are we developing the thinking, critical thinking, intellectual curiosity of the next group coming through? And that's a sea change for a lot. And that to me is the bigger picture. We want to create this hub that includes the Equivation Hub as really being some of the thought leaders in this industry, based right here in not just Windham County, but we've got Franklin County down in Mass, and we've got Cheshire. That's really a hub. The economies are all very similar.
Yeah, we're tied together.
We really are. We have a person who lives in Brattleboro taking a course at GCC and wants to intern with our high performance bit builders. So we cross over. And we have a good relationship with Keene State, Antioch. So it's a long story to saying, what else do you have going? But hopefully we'll here finalize things. We're inching forward on this project, and that's exciting to me.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, Wednesday, March 7th, 5:30 to 7:30 or after at the River Garden. And anybody who's interested in weatherization should attend. Is there a price on this?
Donation.
Donation. By golly, how can you beat that?
And don't let that get in the way of you coming, because you get $100.
Yes, absolutely. Bill Pearson gave me a $1 million bill, and I haven't used it yet.
We are the agents of change as we see